friends. Happy Wednesday. It's your friend Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I don't know about y'all, but we're having a scorcher here in Virginia. We're back up into the mid-90s, and it is hot. And that's why you find me standing yet in the plant room. I think I did it from the plant room last week as well. I'm here on the farm, which, you know, sometimes I'm up at the fulfillment center. And I had planned on like standing out in the garden and doing this, but it is far too hot. And so the way this works is until 1 o'clock, I do my best to answer your questions about anything cut flower, seed starting, start harvesting, growing, whatever you've got, anything related to the flower farming or growing cut flower business. And the way that you post it is down at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little bubble with a question mark in it. That's where you post your questions. That way I don't miss your questions when having to scroll through everybody's name. So here, so my first expected fall frost historically is mid-November. And so that, you know, our target date, according to Cool Flowers, right, my book that's all about this concept on planting cool seeds and hardy annuals, is the jumping off point is 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost date to have your transplants ready then, or to have your seeds ready to plant in the garden for those seeds that prefer direct sowing. So that's our goal. And so we are knee deep in seed starting, and I'm going to show you some. I can't even remember, y'all. I think last week I might have showed you some Rudbeckia. I'm going to show you the Rudbeckia now, and I'm going to show you we've been birthing snapdragons here on the farm. So here's the exciting part of it. So last Thursday, Andrew was helping Bobo with seed starting, and Andrew has never, ever sown seeds, done seed starting. And Bobo instructed him on sowing snaps, and they were born this morning, and I'm going to show you. So my goal, and you know, it's so funny, I did the first in-person program I've done in 4 years this morning, and I don't typically do programs anymore. I just can't leave work. You know, I work 5 days a week, right? But it was our local master gardeners where, in fact, I got my start. So I went and did it. And a question that I got after I did a Cool Flower program for them was, how have I adjusted my planting timing with the crazy weather situation? Well, you kind of just have to, first off, establish, you know, find out your historic for first fall frost. Then what is your 6 to 8 week window? For us, that would be like early, that's mid-September to the 1st of October is the 6 to 8 weeks. Well, the behavior of our weather the past few years is the fall weather just never ends. It just keeps staying fall when it should be cold outside, right? So that has led me, for transplanting only, to plant later and later each year, because here's what you're trying to prevent. You don't want to plant your transplants, let's just say in that normal 6 to 8 week window, and then for fall to go on for 8 more weeks, which means your transplants are going to get established and then start top growing like it's time for them to do that. You don't want that to do. That 6 to 8 week window of before fall frost that you're working with is to allow the plant to get established, or if you're planting a seed, for that seed to sprout into a little transplant or to a little plant before winter comes. Because let me tell you, a snapdragon this tall can go through up to winter hardiness zone 5. But a plant this tall is not even going to go through my winter here in 8A. It's just too big. You don't want your plants to grow so much before winter, right? So that's the part where you have to really use your head scratching, and you just do the best you can. It happens. We've had years, oh my gosh, when I had Ami Magus, that was like almost thigh high. And there's just nothing you can do about that. And you just, you know what you do about that? You start more seed. And you plant another spot. So if you lose that first crop, you have more. So that's kind of what's going on here. Now, let me show you, which am I think I showed you these. This is Denver Daisy. I grow like all the Rudbeckias. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trays of Rebecca going so far, right? And these were started August 21st. So what does that make them? 10, that makes them like 2 weeks old. We always start Rebecca first because they're slow growers. But how beautiful is this? This is in our large tray. This is 60 3/4 inch blocks. And they grow in this block till they go to the garden. These we like to grow like 8 weeks before they get planted to get the nicest, biggest size. But look at these, y'all. Newborn babies. Let's see which one will show up the best. So these are really hard to see. Let me see which. So these are literally the snapdragons. Can y'all see them? See those little white stems? They're white because they just came out. They haven't been under light. And they're leaning because they haven't been under light. So just this morning, they're already straighter than they were. Can y'all see that all right? And we just put them under light. So this is Opus Mix, and they were started on the 31st. And so we are really excited that our Snapdragon babies are born. And I'm going to show you this last one, and then we're done with this. This is a Mobium. If you have not grown a Mobium, it is an amazing, cool flower. And we fall and very early spring planted, and this just came off the heat. See how green those are? They've been under light for a couple of days. So that's kind of where we are here on the farm. Of course, I'm still starting sunflowers. And let's take a look at what questions we have here. Hay Hill House. What have you got? Foxglove, do you suggest direct sowing or starting in blocks 8B so I have time for either? So I am definitely, we don't grow digitalis anymore because Tucker is definitely a plant eater. Digitalis isn't just poisonous. It can really be seriously deadly. So just caution, it's digitalis, right? It really has an effect on your heart. We always started it from seed in soil blocks. It's a tiny seed. We only grew the Foxy, which has it's a true hardy annual. It's not a biennial. Biennial means it needs much longer time period before it'll bloom. It needs a cold treatment. So we always started in small soil blocks, and then I planted it in a spot, if it was in my landscape, where I would encourage self-sowing, but I never got a strong stand of that. So that just says to me direct seeding is more challenging. So we definitely started that in the 3/4 inch block. I prepared a full recipe of soil blocking mix. I use your nutrients. If I don't use that for a few months, the soil dries out in my plastic bin with the lid. Does it get too old to use? So what a great question. So as long as you can reuse blocking mix or any soil really, and it doesn't go bad as long as you don't store it wet. So for instance, you say you have a lid. I would never probably put a lid on soil that actually has moisture in it. So you can stand by. Tell him I'll be done in 22 minutes. Thank you. Just because it's been wet, you don't want funky stuff to grow in it. So yes, just put it up on a shelf like in a garage or something where it'll dry out and you just re-wet it. That is no problem at all. We do that all the time. Wet it, don't use it all, and then bring it back out and just add water. South Carolina Zone 8A, trying to get summer and fall straw flowers. Mine are blooming short now, have some plants that are looking better. Do you get blooms all summer and fall with successions? Yes. And Bobo and I did a thing last year where we planted straw flowers 3 times. We planted very early spring, which is for us mid-February. That's 8 weeks before our last spring frost. And so, hey, stand by, y'all.
The straw flowers out there are beautiful.
Do they have buds?
I cut a little top out of one of them. It was the only one, but the plants are beautiful.
So Bobo's reporting on our straw flowers in the back garden. So last year we planted very early spring and then again in about 6 weeks and then again in about 4 weeks. All of ours were incredibly productive and super tall. We have not experienced straw flowers being super short, but that could just be who knows what, But this year We did a late planting. I think those were planted, this is September. Those were probably planted in late July, and she said they're gorgeous. They haven't bloomed yet, but they're coming along. So it's just, I think 3 successions, 4 to 6 weeks apart will really keep you in business. And I'm telling you, straw flowers are the unsung heroes. They last forever. They're an amazing bouquet ingredient. All of our commercial customers would buy them all every time we offered them, but we never had enough, you know? So I'm just saying, you know, y'all, I was thinking about this yesterday. There are so many incredibly intoxicating, beautiful flowers that are tougher to grow, much more high investment to grow, that are pretty amazing. But I'm here to tell you, I built my entire business on staple flowers, like what we're talking about. Straw flowers, zinnias, sunflowers, coxcomb, plumes, lisianthus. I'm going through in my mind, it's like all of these super low investment, and once you figure out your planting time for whether it's a cool flower, I mean, don't even get me started, snaps and sweet William. I mean, we could never have enough of that stuff for our commercial customers, and they were great bouquet ingredients. So just don't be intoxicated by all these bulbs. I mean, I don't plant any bulbs. Never have. I did. I'll take that back. Take that back. I did plant tulips for a few years, and it was just, I could never, in my conditions, make money doing it because I didn't have the proper growing equipment. And I'm just here, like straw flowers. I mean, straw flowers command a good dollar. You know, I'm not saying $1, good dollars per stem. And why would you just not grow the heck out of them, right? Like you're talking about. So good going, one hub. Figure it out. You'll find it. You'll get it. When do I take my Snapdragon sprouts off the heat pad and out from grow light? So first off, this is a really common question that we get. We never have plants on a heat mat and under a grow light at the same time. They are on the seedling heat mat until 50% show signs of life, and then they're taken off the heat mat and put under the grow lights. You will definitely toast cool season hardy annuals, right? So it's one from the other. And the ones that I just showed earlier, and you can watch the replay of this, is we take them off the heat when 50% show signs, and they're now under the grow light. They'll get bumped out onto the carport to be hardened off once they're a couple inches tall, because usually it's cooler outside than it is in this grow room, and that's what they're really looking for. So I hope that helps. How do I harden my transplants that I'm overwintering since it's warmer, not normal, than my basement where they are growing? Do you cover with row cover? How do I harden my transplants that I'm overwintering since it's warmer than my basement when they are growing? Do you cover? So I'll just tell you what our process is. So they stay in this grow room until I think they're big enough to go out and sustain. See, out on my carport, which is my hardening off area, they're blocked by the really harsh wind because there's a little short wall around my carport that blocks the wind, but they get morning sun and afternoon sun, but they're protected by a carport from rain, right? And so once the transplants get a couple to 2 to 3 inches tall, we like to get them outside. I mean, I think everybody's healthier outside, right? And even if it's hotter than normal, if they're shaded, they should be okay. It's just getting them in the outdoor conditions. We water once every morning, and that carries them through. Even, I mean, when these hot conditions, you just want to be sure you're not leaving them out there to be toasted. They should be shaded, and that is probably okay. Or leave them in your basement. You know, if it's cooler there and you've got grow light space, then you can leave them there. But we, like for instance, our cut flower kale, I was amazed with all the heat we're having, how tall that stuff is getting out there. If you grow healthy transplants, they will really take on some of the conditions that they aren't normally quite so happy with. Have you ever grown 9-bark to use in bouquets? So 9-bark is a woody, a shrub, and I have not, just because we don't really grow shrubs and perennials. I know that's in Dave's course. I know that Jenny Love talks about using that a lot in her event and wedding work. So no, I do not grow that, but it is gorgeous. I'm not saying don't grow it. Some of my straw flowers have drooping necks, quick dip did not fix it. Any suggestion? So straw flowers have soft necks. Oftentimes it's the stage of harvest, and some of them are just droopy. That's, been my experience. And when we use them in bouquets, we always tuck them in the middle, which holds them upright. But usually that can be from hydration, in the field, growing conditions, but the stage to harvest. Can't wait for y'all to see the new book. We have great stage to harvest on all the flowers, but the straw flowers we really worked hard on to really show and tell. You want to cut straw flowers before you see that center, because they get brown earlier in the process if you cut them too late once they're fully open. They look good for a few days. But that has been my solution, is the stage to harvest. Do you think a seed starting area with shelves and grow lights in a garage or attic would be better if I don't have room for a grow room in my house? Sure. So this is just in a giant garage where I am. I've heard people doing it in closets. I did it in my pantry when I first started. I did it in my cellar. You just want to be able to kind of control the air temperature, whether that means like in an attic. An attic might not be the best place, because it's going to get so hot in the summer. That wouldn't be a good choice. So you're looking from anywhere from 65 to 70 degree air temperature for cool season. And for warm season, we are looking for 80 to 90 degrees in this room to grow great plants. So wherever you can do that. But I think you just have to try it. You just have to experiment. Obviously, your attic is not a good place in the summer, but it might be a good place in very early spring and the fall, Just depends on where you are and what your conditions are like. We're in Central Texas 8B. Am I able to start all cool flowers in the fall? I think so. Or do you have any flowers that might be best transplanted in very early spring? What a great question. And in fact, I do not, even though stock will survive our winter here, because I'm in 8A, but they grow too fast. So what happens if you plant stock in the fall for us is they're going to start blooming and elongating like in January. Well, you can't net them. They can't really survive outside in the winter without a little bit of row cover, but you can't net and row cover at the same time. So we do not plant stock or straw flowers. First off, straw flowers for me are right on the edge of winter hardy, and we have learned that the very early spring and the succession still grow ridiculously tall. So it's like there's no loss to planting in very early spring, and it just takes away the risk. So those would be the two. Everything else, 100%. And try a few. Plant a little patch of stock and straw flowers and see if it does better for you. But stock, I think, does beautifully for us planted very early spring. What cool flowers are you starting this week, next week? I love to hear what you're planting. So Bobo's just going down the list. So we always start Rudbeckia first because it's a slowbie. And we've started Feverfew, Snaps, and she's heading into Sweet Williams, and then there's a bunch of oddball stuff, right? Billy Balls, Cresspedia, all that, Amobium, and all those onesies that, there's only one or two of them. But yeah, so we're just starting into all of them because we can't get it all done in one day. It takes a couple of weeks of doing it. And then our direct seeded stuff we'll do the 1st of October or so. Just starting with soil blocking, and I have 4 varieties now that seem to be growing very slow. I'm fertilizing once a week with Neptune's Harvest and watering once a day, but I have slightly yellow leaves. Do you know if I'm over or under watering? Well, you didn't say what you were growing. Some stuff is just slow growers, like I was saying, the Rudbeckia. But if I had to guess, I would say overwatering. That's the #1 issue people have with soil blocks. In fact, I'm getting ready to post a reel showing this. Even I grow funky stuff on my block. See that little red stuff? That is algae or mold. I don't know what the official name is. But I know the day that this started, I watered and didn't come back through and dump off any excess. And then this morning when I saw it, I thought, I wonder if I need to really water today. Oh, yep, they're dry. You want your blocks to be really dry in the morning when you water. You should always water first thing in the morning to allow the maximum amount of time with daylight and grow light and heat and all that stuff. So I would guess overwatering and air temperature. So I don't know what it is that you were starting, but that would be my guess. Zone 3, my Sunday Celosia stems are so thick after pinching hard in the spring. Why is that? Good question. So plant spacing, that's not a classic. If it's all of them, that's kind of odd. If you pinched, we space normal branching annuals 4 rows in a 30-inch wide bed. And I've never had fat Sunday stems. I'd be interested to know if it's all of them, but I would say if, over fertilization, perhaps, and, if they're if you're cutting them at the right stage, if you're leaving them, to age out, do they get fatter? I've just never had that problem. We've had it in coxcomb, of course, but that is typically on unpinched plants. So I'm sorry, I do not have a scientific answer for that. Wanda, my lower back hurts so bad by the end of harvest day. All that bending, any harvesting suggestions to help? Bobo and I were just kind of discussing this. So Bobo can bend till the cows come home. And so we were talking about how, Bobo.
Yeah.
So what is it you do on work days?
Stretch.
She stretches. Simple stuff, right?
Stretch. I lift weights, 10 pounds.
She lifts weights like this on work days in the bathroom in the morning, right? Is where you do it.
Listening to the radio.
And doing this. And so how long would you say? 10 minutes?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
And the bending over and touching. And also I do a little bit of yoga and do I don't know what the name of it is, but you're folded up on the floor and sucking your gut in, and it really stretches your back. I can feel it. And I would say, Wanda, if you're, first off, we're not doctors, right? But I find that stretching, and Bobo's the testament to that, stretching and doing a little bit when yoga's just stretching, right? I don't do a lot of it, but I do, because my pain is right here over it's wrong side, this side, my shoulder, my cutting hand, right? And I find that it just brings me such great relief. Stretching is so underrated. Dogs stretch. They're so smart, right? So that's what our secret has been. We had somebody that worked here years ago that was a yoga person that I think helped us figure out what things might be helpful. But stretching the morning of, and I would say stretching every day, it would be really beneficial for all of us. And I know for me, Bobo doesn't have this, but I have a gut. That makes a big difference too. Sucking your stomach in when your back hurts doesn't make sense, but it really makes it feel better. I learned about that driving down the road. We were traveling so much to conferences. So that's just our 2 cents, Wanda, and I hope you feel better. Just getting started planting a garden. What is your source of water? Well, city or county water? I have all of the above. So I have city water, but I do have 2 wells also here on the farm. And, as I have mentioned before and even shared this morning on that little program that I did, people are quite surprised to learn. You can ask anybody that has worked on this farm. We do virtually no irrigating here. We lay irrigation tape in every bed in the event that drought comes. But we have spent so much of our focus and our time on building our soil and constantly building our soil, meaning we're always adding more organic matter, doing cover crop, using only organic fertilizers, which feeds the biology of your soil, to beef up everything and constantly using organic mulches like leaves and leaf mold and bark and things that ultimately break down, that we just do Bobo plants and then waters by hand. She uses we have a hose reel that rolls up with a wand. She waters every plant to make sure each individual plant gets a good thirsty drink. And the only time they really get water again is if we hit a dry spell and they're young and unestablished. But in general, they're on their own. And y'all have seen the results. I mean, we don't make this up. There is no, that's one of the reasons I started doing that once a year open farm. It wasn't so much the irrigation, but particularly some ag people just really couldn't believe that we were doing what we were doing from our small space without chemical of any kind, organic or otherwise, intervention, and without a lot of irrigation. Irrigation to me is just such a pain in the neck. It's the maintenance of the vegetation around the irrigation, like the heads, is our bane of our existence here. We're in the South. We have Bermuda grass and these perennial grasses that just engulf the heads of irrigation. I've tried everything. Anyway, that's what led us to where we are. We irrigate very rarely, if ever. But we use city water. I have used city water. We use well water when we do. And if you have a question about the quality of your well water, just get it tested. I was asked by a master gardener this morning at the program that I did. She asked me about a bush bean, like vegetables, question about a disease she gets every year. And it's like, we have to stop guessing. Your extension office, that's what they're there for. You take them a sample of a plant and say, I'm having this disease. This is what it looks like. Can you send it off? It doesn't even matter if it cost you $20, but I don't think it costs that much. For them to send it off to a lab to get a definitive diagnosis so that you know what to do, right? Whether it's like, oh my gosh, I can never grow beans again without getting this, or there are varieties that are resistant to whatever the name of this disease I have in my soil now. You know what I mean? So if you have a question about your water, there's places, our Waterworks tests water. So that is what, that is all about. And I find it so interesting. I was told them this morning that we're all this way, right? It's like how my students are having an issue like that, and they'll ask the other students, other people that just like them and me even, that don't know. We aren't lab people. We aren't disease people or pest people. Do you know what I mean? It's so funny. It's so easy to just go straight to the horse and get a definitive answer, but sometimes it takes us a long time to figure that out. So this is just the reminder. We soil test in the fall. That's what we recommend, especially if you're farming. And if you're having a disease problem on some crop and you just can't figure it out, you just got to get a test. I did that several years ago, and it's like, oh crap, I have what? And at least they could tell you what it was and what to do or not to do about it. So, that's all I'm saying. We have a lot of resources available to us, and we don't always have a problem. We don't always go to who can solve the problem. What about chlorine in city water? Is it harmful? So I don't know about harmful out in the garden. I don't think so. But chlorine, if you're using organic liquid fertilizers like Neptune's Harvest, city water can affect that because that's a living fertilizer. So the way you resolve that is like right now at the base of my feet here in my grow room, I keep a large trash can, and that's full of a large kitchen trash can that's full of water, and that's what I dip from to water all my plants. And then I fill it up when I'm done today, so it sits. You know how back when we used to get fish when you were growing up, and they would say let the water sit out for 24 hours? Well, that was allowing the chlorine to dissipate. So that's what I think about that. All right. This is my last question. This is a good one. For growing winter hardy annuals with fall planting, do you irrigate same as you would in the spring? Well, so no. I just said we don't really irrigate. So, but in a normal situation, for people that do irrigate on a regular basis, for fall planted stuff, again, it has irrigation laid in the bed just in case we ever need it. We water it by hand. Bobo waters after she's done planting. And then in winter, snow, ice, and rain happens more frequently, and the soil does not dry out nearly as quick as it does in the summertime. So we would say no, do not irrigate unless you have to just stick your finger in the soil and test and see, is it actually dry, right? We would resist watering with irrigation in the fall because you don't want water in your irrigation. You know, you lay it so you can plant, but we would take care of watering not through the irrigation. We'd save that until very early spring to start using it. You just don't want your fittings to freeze going through winter, and once water is in your irrigation, that also attracts rodents to eat a hole to get to the water. So, you know, that's what we do. All right, friends, it is 1 o'clock and we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm glad I got to show you my baby snapdragons and rudbeckias and amobium. And I will see you on Friday inside my app for the live shopping show showing the harvest of this week. And things are slowing down a little bit around here. We've got more foliages than we do flowers, I think. And thanks for joining me. And remember to please like and share our post, and that just helps us to reach more people and to bring you even more and more content. All right, friends, until we meet again, ciao.